You know, the kids are heading back to school,
that,
Ryan.
Cal.
Not yours, but someone's are heading back to school. There are important conversations every parent should have with their children. Here with tips and tools for making these discussions easy and effective is psychiatrist and the most important guest we ever have on this show, Dr. Gail Saltz.
Thank you.
Thank you for returning.
You
give us such great advice.
Thank you.
Always.
So the beginning of school, the anxiety kicks in.
It does, and it kicks in about different things.
Right.
So really, there are two big categories. The first is social anxiety. Kids are worried about what the social scene is going to be like, and top amongst that is bullying. Kids do worry and struggle with bullying, which can be really traumatic, so you do want to prepare yourself.
So what's at the root of why kids bully other kids?
Great question. There are rarely kids who actually do like making other kids squirm or be in pain, but that is pretty rare. It is more so the kid who is really insecure, the kid, and by the way, this is often girls, who have a high social IQ and understand that bullying can give them power in the dynamic and popularity and things that they want. And so they use that. So it's often more about a kid maybe who's had some bullying at home, or feels very insecure, or is trying to change the dynamic that's doing it.
It really is it's an interesting thing, and it's a group activity too. And there was
feed
a
off of
study
each other.
where they were doing like I can't remember, a questionnaire, and a lot of times the bullies identified as being bullied.
Correct, and sometimes they truly are. So you have to think about, inform your kid about that dynamic so they understand. So what do you want to do? Before school even starts or in the early weeks, you want to forewarn them. Because unfortunately what happens is something starts and then they're frozen and they're freaked out and they play into the bullying. So let them know this can happen. What does it look like? It could look like something overt. It could look like something like shunning you or keeping you out of the group. Give them a heads up of the kinds of things that can happen that may not happen, but in case they do, they shouldn't be stunned. You want to fortify them. When it happens, remind them this says more about the bully, as you're pointing out, than themselves. So they don't feel, it doesn't hurt their self-esteem, which is really something that can happen.
Which is hard to understand as a young person,
It is hard
right?
to understand, and you're teaching them something about human dynamics, right? It's normal to have aggression, but it's about teaching each other how to manage that aggression and not to pile on. You want to teach them to not be part of the herd effect and join the bully against someone else to try to save themselves. In other words, you're teaching them about all of this. You want to help them practice appropriate responses ahead of time so they're not scared. So, for example, give me your best shot. Let's bring on some bullying.
We're having a party and the whole class is invited except for you, Dr. Gail.
Oh, okay, that's a girl thing right there. I mean, girl.
No, I'm not
And
saying
the
that
body
happened to me.
language.
I'm just saying that maybe that happened to me.
And you want to teach them a one-liner that they can rehearse, that they feel comfortable with, and maybe it's going to be, for example, oh, you must have had a bad day. Something that indicates like they're feeling insecure and uncomfortable, that they felt the need to do that. Or something like, well, that wasn't very nice. Okay. You know?
No, I like the first one. It's like,
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be
You
okay.
had a bad day.
Like you had
Sorry
a bad
about
day.
that, right?
So something short, sweet, okay, don't engage. That's the most important thing. The bully is looking for the provocation. You don't want to give them more of that. Most important, data-driven research shows that the bystander can have the biggest effect on bullying. So have your child find an ally. Hey, Joey, if something like this comes up and I see it, I'm going to say, hey, don't say that. That's my friend. That's the one-liner. And,
That's strong.
And Joey, when that happens to me, if you do the same for me, that would be great. I got you. The bystander can diffuse the bullying the fastest and the most effectively. And last, if something is really going on that's difficult, do talk to your school. You want your child to come to you. You want them to take a beat before they respond. If it's in writing, you might want to print it out so that you have documentation, especially if it's really escalated. And then you do want to talk to your school. Kids can be moved, they can be separated, teachers can help.
Okay, let's take a break and come back more with Dr. Gail after the break here on Live. Back with Dr. Gail Saltz. So what if a student is struggling with their schoolwork?
Then you want to alert them to certain possibilities and alert yourself. The first is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which occurs very frequently. It doesn't mean you can't pay attention. It means you can't regulate when you pay attention. So if your kid is having trouble attending to certain things, if your kid is having trouble following directions, if they're forgetting things, that's a big one. They leave home what they're supposed to bring to school. They leave at school what they're supposed to bring home.
This is like me.
Yeah,
If
right.
they're
How do we deal with that as
impulsive.
hosts of a talk show?
Yes, right.
Those are all signs. The other big issue that comes up is anxiety. 25% of all kids at some point in their childhood will have an anxiety disorder. These are easily treatable, but they need to be recognized. So
Especially around tests, right? The anxiety
test anxiety,
ratchets up.
social anxiety, separation anxiety. What will you hear? Worries, the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens?
Right, the spiraling a little bit.
The spiraling, and it's all in their head, so they can't pay attention in school, which makes their anxiety worse, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And they may start withdrawing from friends or wanting to come home right away or not wanting to go to school.
You should look for those signs.
So if you see these things, you do want to test and evaluate because they're very treatable. Your child can be taught workarounds to get around the ADHD in school and the anxiety.
Do they have specialists that are just specifically there to give tests for a learning disability or anxiety disorder or something like that?
Many schools within, if you talk to the school, will do neuropsychological testing there and tell you what the issue is that's going on.
Are there specific questions parents should ask their kids at the beginning of the school year?
Absolutely. What are you nervous about? What are you looking forward to? What do you want to be engaged in? What are the things that you think you need a little extra boost to help you to settle in?
Could we see you to motivate us for tomorrow's show as well?
Can we see you? And
We could use you on a regular basis
I will wheel my couch up for you, Ryan, any day.
We'll see you at 4
Again, and
on
then
Thursday, like always.
for our joint session. For more topics like this and more, listen to Dr. Saltz podcast, How Can I Help on iHeartRadio. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.
Thank you again.